When we're covering technology on Tech Today and on Business Today, we often talk about so many cool apps, especially in the streaming space, also in the payment space. UPI is the backbone of the digital payments push here in India, but you use so many apps like maybe Google Pay or Paytm. I really think that your choice or your preferred app happens to be the one which is most interesting to use and the most interesting to see. Of course, on the back end, we explain the technology all along, but there's a very crucial element that goes behind that layer that makes it alluring or enticing for the customer, and it's called design thinking. And someone who understands design thinking really well is sat with me here on the show today, Dipali Saini, founder and CEO of Think Design. Dipali, what a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Dipali, when we're talking about the user experience, a really crucial role is played by the concept of design thinking. I'm guessing that's a concept you're no stranger to. And how pivotal is design thinking in enhancing the user experience?
Oh, absolutely critical. See, for users, lots of times their experience of a product, a business, even a brand is as good as the user interface that they are using, where they're buying, reading, getting entertainment. So it's absolutely critical. It can be make or break for a business. And design thinking is the process that is used for it. So it's very important for us to not just design for consumers and users how we feel. That's why, critical to design thinking is knowing who it is. So research, prototype, test, put it out there.
And that's the nomenclature of the firm as well, I find very interesting. Think Design.
Yeah, that was clever.
Very quickly, I'm guessing there was a wordplay background over there, and what's the journey been like at Think Design?
So the journey is kind of stereotypical. We were three folks who did our masters in design from NID Ahmedabad, and I would say rather naive, started Think Design very early on. This is a good 2 decades ago. The journey has been very fulfilling. I would say that our journey has pretty much been a mirror of how digital ecosystem in the country has evolved. So we started with very enterprise apps, which look like Excel sheets, and how to make them more consumable, intuitive, easy to use. When mobile came in, it was almost this huge flood in the ecosystem of apps in the country, and we ourselves were getting so much work in mobile, moving to OTT, newer domains, and I would say now almost everything we do is AI based.
Interesting. You're talking about AI, and AI is quite a catchphrase nowadays.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine the work of a UX expert or someone at Think Design would change drastically in the next few years, especially with what's happening in the AI space. Right now, when you're using ChatGPT, or a lot of people are using Bard as well in the US and soon in India, it's very elementary. It feels like you're on MS-DOS back in the 90s. But is that something you think is intentional, or will someone from the design thinking space be able to come and disrupt that so that more people will not be intimidated by the use of AI?
Okay, so number one, AI is prevalent in almost everything we do. We may or may not, as regular users, consumers, be aware of it. As designers, I can promise you, it is part of almost every app that is being designed. Now coming to ChatGPT, it's almost clinical, their interface. It's on just a search bar. Yeah. It's intentional.
Okay.
In today's world, more or less, the interfaces you have at global level, products, platforms, websites, everything is thought through. Experience design is at the intersection of business and data. So when ChatGPT looks the way it does, it has been intentionally designed the way it is. For now, it will evolve. And I would say that for all of us, including folks who are right in the middle of it as UX designers, right? We're watching it very closely. So it would be, I think, not correct to be saying that this is how it's going to be. Possibly it's going to evolve as time goes by.
And that's what I was saying. And that's when design thinking comes in and is really a disruptor in that space, because there'll be several competing products in the years to come. In fact, it's very interesting that Apple, being one of the world's most loved technology companies, at the core of Apple, Dipali, as well, is design. right? They had a gentleman named Johnny Ive who planned every detail with Steve Jobs for every product that Apple launched. And Apple doesn't launch a product without being entirely sure about design externally with the hardware and, more importantly, in the software. I think it's fascinating what's happening in this space. But another thing I want to talk about, we are at the Business Today most powerful women conclave. And when we talk about women in tech and women in design and in engineering, do you think that there isn't adequate representation? Mostly, and more importantly, here in India, do we lack adequate representation when we're talking about women in tech, design and engineering?
We definitely do. See, I'll tell you the scenario. I'm also a visiting faculty. I visit colleges to teach and to, jury. So what you see is that when you go to colleges, there's so many women and girls picking up STEM. They're picking up technology, they're coming into design, UX design, becoming engineers. But when you move into corporates, there's so few CEOs in the tech space. So somewhere the women are dropping off. So is there representation that is very less? Yes, it is. I would heavily recommend that in today's India, where we have. In education, more and more women are coming in tech. But when it comes to corporates, maybe not all the corporates are making the kind of efforts, but quite a few are. For example, I wouldn't put a plug over here, is that at Havas Think Design, over the last 2 years, representation of UX designers, we've taken it from 26 to 40%. It is deliberately done. There have been efforts.
Women designers.
Oh yes. I myself am a big proponent of it. I encourage getting women back into the workforce and encourage them into leadership positions.
But Dipali, leadership positions being key, is there a glass ceiling out there which needs to be shattered?
It needs to be shattered. If I may be very frank, I would say that that glass ceiling is less prevalent in tech as it is in manufacturing industries. So for girls out there, this is a good domain to be. And there are lots of companies today who are encouraging middle management women to go to leadership position. We need more work done, but I would say I'm pretty pumped and encouraged by what's happening around us right now.
Dipali, what an absolute pleasure to have you with us here at MPW and on Business Today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.